What would you do if you find out your own brother secretly filmed your sister undressed? Would you discipline him, file charges, or pretend nothing ever happened? For the Lanky family, this horrifying discovery cracked their home open, exposing secrets, betrayal, and a tension that could no longer be contained. What should have been a joyful month slowly turned into something dark and unbearable. In the early morning hours of December 30th, 2000, Deputy Paul Murray drove down a long gravel driveway in rural Stevens County, Washington. He was there for a routine welfare check. A family of 4 hadn't been seen in days. Their car was still parked outside. Their wallets and purses were still inside the house. But as the deputy stepped out of his patrol car, his stomach dropped. A 16-year-old boy sat behind the wheel of a pickup truck, 3 passengers beside him trying to leave. What followed would uncover one of the most disturbing family murders in Washington state history, one that investigators would never forget. The Lemkes were, by all accounts, an ordinary American family living in Addy, Washington, a quiet rural community about 60 miles north of Spokane, the kind of place where neighbors knew each other, where logging trucks rumbled down narrow roads, and where life moved at the steady, predictable rhythm of the seasons. Robert Lemke was 49 years old and worked as a self-employed logger. He owned his own truck and loader, and those who knew him described him as hardworking and dependable. His wife, Diana, was 43. She suffered from multiple sclerosis and rarely left the house because of her condition, but she was known to be a devoted mother who loved her children deeply. The couple had 4 children. Their oldest, Clinton, called Clint by everyone who knew him, was 24 and had moved out of the family home. He'd been working alongside his father in the logging business since he was just 14 years old, learning the trade that would one day become his livelihood. Still living at home were 3 younger siblings. 18-year-old Jolene was a senior at Colville High School. Her principal would later describe her as a terrific kid, very well liked by her peers. With her mother's illness, Jolene had stepped up to help run the household, doing much of the cooking and cleaning without complaint. Friends said she had a bright future ahead of her. Then there was 16-year-old William, who had been homeschooled for the previous year before re-enrolling at Colville High just 2 months earlier. His principal remembered him as quiet, someone who seemed very close to his sister and never caused serious trouble. The kind of student who blended in, neither standout nor troublemaker. And finally, there was Wesley, just 12 years old. He'd celebrated his birthday on December 9th, only weeks before everything changed. He was the youngest, the baby of the family, and by all accounts, a sweet-natured boy who loved his siblings. From the outside, the Lemkes looked like any other family navigating the challenges of rural life. They weren't wealthy, but they had what they needed. Robert worked long hours to provide. Diana managed the home despite her declining health. The children went to school, helped out, lived their lives. But beneath that surface, something was festering. On December 29, 2000, Clint Lemke stopped by his family's house on Marble Valley Basin Road. It had been a few days since he'd seen his parents or younger siblings, which wasn't unusual. He lived nearby but had his own place. Still, something felt off. When William answered the door, Clint asked where everyone was. William's answer was quick, almost rehearsed. They went to California, he said, to visit a sick relative. Clint paused. California? In the middle of winter? And no one had mentioned it to him beforehand? He asked which relative was sick. William couldn't give him a clear answer. So Clint started making calls. Aunts, uncles, cousins. No one knew anything about a sick family member in California. No one had heard from Robert, Diana, Jolene, or Wesley in days. That same day, Diana's brother, Andy Davenport, was growing concerned for the same reasons. Andy lived nearby and shared a driveway with the Lemkes. He'd seen William coming and going, but the rest of the family? Gone, vanished. On December 29th, late in the evening, both Andy and Clint decided to enter the house and look around. What they found only deepened their alarm. Robert's wallet was sitting out. Diana's purse was there, along with her identification. The family vehicles were parked outside. Nothing had been taken. It looked as though they'd simply stepped out for a moment and never returned, except they had been gone for days. Shortly before midnight, Andy contacted the Stevens County Sheriff's Office and requested a welfare check. Deputies Paul Murray and Dwayne Johnson arrived at the Lemke home in the early morning hours of December 30th. It was still dark, the temperature hovered near freezing. Snow clung to the trees and the edges of the gravel driveway. As Deputy Murray pulled in, he saw a pickup truck in the driveway, engine running. William Lemke was behind the wheel. 3 friends sat in the cab with him. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. Deputy Murray parked his patrol car to block the driveway. Deputy Johnson pulled in behind him. Andy Davenport followed. William couldn't leave now, even if he wanted to. Deputy Murray approached the truck and asked William where his family was. William said he didn't know, but, he added, the deputies were welcome to go inside and look around. Deputy Murray asked if he could check the parents' bedroom. William said yes. Inside, the deputy found Robert's wallet, Diana's purse, their identification cards, everything a person would need if they were actually traveling. None of it had been taken. Meanwhile, Deputy Johnson was walking through the rest of the house. And that's when he saw it. Blood. On the hot water tank, on the washing machine, smeared across surfaces that should have been clean. Then he noticed the ceiling. Fresh paint. White and crisp, as if someone had just rolled it on. But underneath, dark stains were already bleeding through. Deputy Johnson called over Deputy Murray. They conferred quietly, their concern escalating. They asked William to step inside. They read him his Miranda rights. They asked if he would consent to a full search of the home. William signed the consent form. He didn't ask for a lawyer. The deputies continued searching. In the kitchen, they found bits of what appeared to be human tissue on a utensil. On a light fixture, more blood. The house looked like someone had tried desperately to clean it, painting over the worst of the evidence, scrubbing away what they could. But blood has a way of revealing itself. Then the deputies went back outside to speak with the passengers in William's truck. That's when they saw it. Blood in the bed of the pickup. Not a lot, but enough. At that point, the search stopped. At 4 o'clock in the morning on December 30th, 2016-year-old William Lemke was placed under arrest and transported to the Stevens County Jail. In custody, William's calm exterior began to crack. Deputies asked him directly, "Where is your family?" And William told them. He confessed to shooting his father, Robert, his mother, Diana, his 18-year-old sister, Jolene, and his 12-year-old brother, Wesley. He said he'd loaded their bodies into the family pickup truck and driven them northwest of Addy, dumping them in a ditch off Knapp Road. Later that same day, investigators followed William's directions, and there, covered in snow on the side of a rural roadway, they found the bodies of Robert, Diana, Jolene, and Wesley Lemke. The scene was devastating. Robert had been shot 3 times in the head at close range. He was wearing only a towel, suggesting he'd been attacked shortly after getting out of the shower. Wesley, the youngest, had been shot once in the head, what forensic examiners call a contact wound, meaning the gun had been pressed directly against his skull. Diana had been shot 3 times in the head with 2 different rifles. She'd also been shot 4 times in the right arm, shoulder, and hands, defensive wounds that suggested she'd tried to shield herself, to fight back, to survive. Jolene had been shot twice in the back of the head and once in the back. Her body was found partially unclothed from the waist down. Investigators recovered 2 weapons from the house, a .308 caliber rifle and a .22 caliber rifle. Forensic analysis confirmed both had been used in the killings. Diana was the only victim shot with both weapons. The others had been killed with the .22. In his written confession, William laid out what had happened. He said his father had been angry with him for not helping gather firewood. That anger, he claimed, had escalated. So when Robert went into the shower, William loaded the guns. Then he waited. According to the affidavit, William's own words were chilling. Shortly after the defendant armed himself, he shot his dad in the hallway, then he shot his mother in the kitchen, then his sister in the living room, and his brother in the living room as he was lying on the floor. When asked why he shot his mother, sister, and brother, William's answer was simple. They were witnesses. But that wasn't the whole truth, and in the months that followed, a far darker motive would emerge. It wasn't until June of 2001, 6 months after the murders, that prosecutors revealed what had really triggered the massacre. On December 21, 2000, just 2 days before the killings, Jolene Lemke had made a disturbing discovery. She was looking through the family's new video camera when she found a recording. It showed her undressing and showering. Someone had secretly filmed her. She immediately told her boyfriend, Dylan Simpkins. Then she told her parents. The person behind the camera was her younger brother, William. Robert and Diana confronted him. They disciplined him. And William, humiliated and enraged, began planning his response. What prosecutors would later argue in court was that this wasn't a spontaneous act of violence. It was premeditated, calculated. William waited until his father was in the shower, vulnerable, unarmed. He loaded the rifles, he positioned himself, and then he methodically executed his entire family, one by one, to eliminate anyone who knew what he had done. But the horror didn't end there. During the investigation, William admitted to something even more disturbing. After he killed Jolene, he sexually assaulted her body. When investigators found her remains in the snow-covered ditch, she was nude from the waist down. For the detectives working the case, this revelation was almost too much to process. This wasn't just a family annihilation, it was a crime layered with violence, violation, and a complete absence of remorse. After the killings, William didn't panic. He didn't break down. He didn't turn himself in. Instead, he set about covering his tracks. He painted over the blood-stained walls and ceilings. He scrubbed surfaces. He loaded the bodies of his parents and siblings into the family pickup truck, drove them 2 miles away, and dumped them in a roadside ditch. Then he returned home, parked the truck, and went on with his life. For days, he told friends and relatives that his family had gone to California to visit a sick relative. He went out. He socialized. He acted as if nothing had happened. When Clint came by asking questions, William stuck to his story. When Andy Davenport expressed concern, William didn't flinch. Even when deputies arrived in the early hours of December 30th, William was preparing to leave with friends, as though he could simply drive away from what he'd done. Prosecutors would later point to this behavior as evidence of premeditation and a complete lack of remorse. This wasn't a teenager who had snapped in a moment of rage and immediately regretted it. This was someone who had killed 4 people, hidden their bodies, and then spent days maintaining a lie. William Lemke was charged as an adult with 4 counts of aggravated first-degree murder. In Washington state, that charge carries only 2 possible sentences: life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. Because William was 16 at the time of the killings, the death penalty was not an option. His trial began in August of 2001. The jury had been selected in Okanogan County due to concerns about pretrial publicity in Stevens County, where the Lemke family was well known. The defense, led by attorney Paul Wasson, argued that William suffered from diminished mental capacity at the time of the murders. They brought in psychiatrist Dr. Alan Eunice, who testified that William had endured a traumatic childhood in a dysfunctional family and that his mental state had been compromised. The defense sought a conviction on the lesser charge of second-degree murder, hoping to avoid the mandatory life sentence. But Deputy Stevens County Prosecutor David Bruno wasn't buying it. In his closing arguments, he characterized William as a selfish, cold-blooded killer who had planned the murders, executed them with precision, and then spent the following days partying with friends while his family's bodies lay frozen in a ditch. Bruno highlighted the evidence: the 2 different rifles, the waiting for his father to be vulnerable in the shower, the systematic elimination of witnesses, the sexual assault of his sister's body, and the elaborate cover-up. The jury didn't need long to decide. On August 27, 2001, after deliberating for less than 2 hours, they returned a verdict: guilty on all 4 counts of aggravated first-degree murder. In the courtroom, William's older brother Clint broke down in tears. Family members sobbed openly. William, who had shown little emotion throughout the trial, finally cracked. When his aunt, Pamela Ham, took the stand during the sentencing phase and told him he'd had a loving mother and a hard-working father and didn't know what he'd given up, William openly wept. The next day, on August 28, 2001, Stevens County Superior Court Judge Larry Christensen handed down the sentence. As he did, he looked directly at William and said, "Deep inside, son, you're a monster, and you deserve the punishment that a monster should receive." William Lemke was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was also assessed more than $15,500 in lawyer fees and court costs. For Clint Lemke, the only surviving member of his immediate family, the years that followed were marked by unimaginable grief. He'd lost his father, his mother, his sister, and his youngest brother, all in one horrific act, and the person responsible was his own brother. Clint carried on his father's legacy. In 2000, he became the sole owner and operator of Lemke Trucking, the business Robert had built. He worked in the logging industry for over 2 decades, honoring the trade his father had taught him when he was just a teenager. In 2009, Clint married. He had a son. He tried to build a life from the ashes of the one he'd lost, but the weight of what had happened never truly left him. On November 26, 2022, Clint Lemke passed away at the age of 46. The obituary didn't mention how he died, but those who knew him said he had never fully recovered from the trauma of losing his entire family in such a brutal way. Robert, Diana, Jolene, and Wesley Lemke are buried together at Mountain View Cemetery. Clint is buried alongside them now. 5 graves, side by side, a family reunited in death, torn apart by one of their own. In 2003, William Lemke filed an appeal claiming the court had made errors by refusing to suppress his statements to police and the evidence discovered during the search of the family home. The appeal was denied. His conviction and sentence stood. To this day, William Lemke remains incarcerated, serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. He is now in his 40s. He will never be released. For those who knew the Lemke family, the question that lingers isn't about guilt. William confessed. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury was unanimous. The question is why? What drives a 16-year-old to methodically execute his entire family? Was it shame? Rage? A complete absence of empathy? Principal Chuck Salina, who had known William at Colville High School, said it best. He did some juvenile-type stuff but didn't exhibit any of the type of anger that would lead to something like this. This just shocked me. Whatever was going on in his head or in the family, I sure didn't see any of that in school. The truth is, we may never fully understand what was going on inside William Lemke's mind during those final days of December 2000. What we do know is that on December 23, 2000, 4 people who should have been safe in their own home were murdered by someone they loved and trusted. Robert Lemke, 49 years old, a hardworking logger who provided for his family. Diana Lemke, 43 years old, a mother who raised her children despite battling a debilitating illness. Jolene Lemke, 18 years old, a high school senior with her whole life ahead of her. And Wesley Lemke, just 12 years old, a boy who had celebrated his birthday only weeks before he was killed Their lives mattered. Their stories deserved to be remembered. And their deaths serve as a stark reminder that sometimes the greatest danger doesn't come from strangers. It comes from within. Don't forget to check out our other videos where we bring more real stories like this to light, giving a voice to the victims and shining a spotlight on the truth behind each case.